Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the big day. My name is Rob Zile from the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management and the director of the OCPM program. If we have any visitors with us today, welcome and thank you for joining us and for your support. For our cohort members that are presenting today and the next couple days, I want to say thank you on behalf of the program and our team and on the state. Because I really appreciate all the effort that you have invested in yourself, in your project, in your organizations, and in our community. I know that sometimes it gets kind of goes by fast, or we get caught up into the sessions, or get caught up into our projects or whatever. But this stuff means a lot to me personally, and it's really important because our basically our civil society that we have right now rests on your shoulders, and the more that you're efficient, effective, and can maintain the quality of life that we have, it's the better off we're going to be. So I take it very seriously, and I appreciate the fact that you all have too. Not only just what you're doing with your projects, as we're going to see over the next 3 sessions, but also just what you brought to the table as far as your interactions in the cohort. I've really enjoyed our time together, and I already miss some of the shenanigans and hanging out and some of the fun stuff that we've had, but also just to get to know you as individuals and as professionals. I've been very impressed and continue to just be in awe of the folks that we get a chance to hang out with on a regular basis. So anyway, today is like basically the celebration of all of your hard work. For those of you that are presenting over the next couple of days, I do not want you to be nervous or anxious or fearful. This is more, I believe, a celebration of your hard work and just basically putting a spotlight on all of your effort and all of your contributions over time. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I just really want you to really showcase your stuff, show off what you've learned, and kind of show us who you are, because again, you all are superstars. I'm going to go through some logistics for the day and then the rest of the program in general. Basically, we have about 5 or 6 projects today. Tomorrow, we actually have a smaller section of folks. We have about 3 or 4 projects, which I will go into more detail at the end of the session as far as how the run of show is going to go for tomorrow's session. And then we have the December 15th is our last day of presentations. What's going to happen today is each person has about a half hour to present. You will present your material, hopefully 20 minutes or so-ish in that range, and then we'll have some Q&A in between at the end of that presentation and before the next presentation comes up. There's some really key contributions from the audience members, whether you're a cohort member or a guest or an employer or coworker. We ask that the audience members, and that's the cohort and everybody that's showing up today to be part of this, is to provide feedback to the actual individual presenter or the team. There will be a link that is going to be provided to you, and in that link, you'll see that they will have a specific link that we want you to click on, and it'll be the individual unique evaluation or the feedback form for that particular presentation and that presenter. We really want the entire cohort at the minimum to provide feedback to the presentation and the presenter, because that information will be used as a way to kind of incorporate that feedback into the written report. So Alexander will be posting in there, or in the chat, in the Q&A, there should be in the chat box, there will be individual customized evaluation links for each participant. If you don't see it or you miss it or you can't find it, send us a chat or email or reach out to us individually, because we'll forward that to your attention. And then at the end of the presentation, at the end of each cycle, we will tabulate those results and then forward basically a summary back to the participants individually, so you can get that feedback in real time sake. So we really want you to, again, complete the evaluation for us. And then also another thing we want you to do is to have interaction with the actual presenter. So in the Q&A box there, we would like your feedback. Now at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions or concerns, if there's anything you want more information on, clarify any statements, or maybe there's some suggestions on, hey, you might want to think about adding this, or you might want to consider changing that. We really want that kind of feedback. Or again, since this is something about, celebrating each other, if you don't mind sharing some things that you thought was fantastic, whether it was the design of the actual project, if you want to talk about, the impact that it is to the community organization, we really want this to be interactive throughout the entire session. So please, audience members, feel free to contribute, ask any questions or feedback. What's going to happen at the end of the presentation is I'll jump in right at the end and say congratulations, and then if there's any kind of questions that I have or any kind of summary, I'll present some information, and then pass the baton over to Alexandra, who will then moderate all the questions and the feedback. And then once that person is done, and we've gone through, then we'll just call up the next person. We will promote the next person from a participant to a panelist, and then kind of go on from there. For those of you that are in the audience, and this includes everyone, we don't really have a break built into today's session. So if you need to take a break, use the restroom, make a phone call, whatever, check an email, we really want you to participate as much as you possibly can. But if you need to step away for a minute, feel free to do so, and then join us back as soon as you're available. So just go about your business as necessary. We're going to be on the session today until about, I think, 11:30-ish or so, I believe is the 11 o'clock, and then we'll finish up with closing statements around by 11:15, closing out for directions and getting ready for tomorrow. So we're definitely going to be finishing up a little bit earlier than our normal time, which is fantastic, and we'll definitely finish up early tomorrow as well. And it'll be like a nice little break to kick off the weekend. I have a couple more statements that I want to say, and that is about the next steps. The written report usually is due 1 month after the last presentation. The last presentation day is going to be on December 15th. So that means technically January 15th would be the deadline to turn in your written report. However, I was thinking about it though, with the holidays and travel and vacations and just people being busy, I wanted to just extend that deadline till the end of January. So hopefully that will provide some relief there, so you can juggle all your end of year activities for both personal and work life and balance, and also put the PMA written report in there. So if you get it done earlier than the end of January, feel free to forward to our attention at any time, because we'll definitely take a look at it and get it distributed for evaluation. But anyway, feel free to use to the end of January for the written report. How the written report evaluation process works is it comes into our office, and our team will look at it. Myself or Alexander will take a look at it, and basically make sure that it checks the boxes based on the rubric, the written report format, and kind of checks the boxes of the various pieces from the scope and action plan all the way into your implementation plan. If it basically checks all those boxes, then it gets forwarded on to our evaluation team, which are members of our OCPM statewide advisory board. They will then get the report along with an evaluation rubric, and then they'll read it and then fill out that form. They're usually, just so that everybody is not alarmed, there is usually questions or concerns or some feedback that's or revisions that are required. At that point in time, I will then work directly with the individual person to kind of go over what the feedback was, and the request for revision, and then you have some time to kind of adjust it from there. Sometimes the paper works out fantastic and you're good to go, and then you're done. So, but we'll take as much time as we need to get those revisions completed. We will not allow you to fail. that, and we'll keep working on it until we get it all done. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that there are other folks that are involved in this process. You may see some of them, or they might be participating in the next 3 days events. So, you might bump into one of our advisory folks on the actual presentations over the next few days. But basically, that's how the paper works. We hope to get it wrapped up within a month or so after when it's due. So, and our tentative date right now is to have a track celebration to celebrate this cohort and the last couple of cohorts sometime in March, so that of 23, so we can kind of get everybody graduated through this particular area. So that's kind of the deadline there as far as what we're looking for. Also, there are two other things to finish up the PMA process. There is also any kind of open sessions that you might have, anything you missed, as well as the pre and post assignments. So feel free to, we will get you a transcript of at the end of this written report process and say, here's your transcript so you can get credit for it in case you need to do anything for work, but also notify you if you've missed any kind of workshops or any type of pre and post assignments. And those are all requirements for the CPM credential. So we definitely need you to get that completed. We're currently in PMA number 10, and we are actually starting to put together a schedule for PMA 11. So PMA 10 is already up and running, and PMA 11 is going to start on Thursday, March 16th. I say that for two reasons. Number one, obviously, if you have any kind of makeup sessions that you have, that's another opportunity to kind of jump in and get that taken care of. And then also just a shameless plug and commercial that if you know of anybody within your department or agency or your scope of work that's interested in joining our family and our team, feel free to pass that along. And we're working on the marketing piece that will be starting in January that we'll start to actually launch that. But if you know of anybody, feel free to give me the information, now. But let's get started the party. Our very first presenter actually joins us today from cohort number 8, PMA number 8. Christine Cole works over at the Ohio Department of Medicaid, and she was unable to present with her cohort, but she was gracious enough to come back and join us for today and to present, her paper and her report to you all. Really pumped about her project because it's based on learning on demand training for the Medicaid area. And as we're all dealing with this great resignation right now with a lot of turnover and change in our organizations, I think this type of project and program will be beneficial for not only her department, but a lot of things we're doing here in PMA and across the entire state of Ohio. So without further ado, I'd like to call up Ms. Christine Cole.
Well, good morning, all. My name is Christine Cole, and I'm an external audit manager for the Ohio Department of Medicaid. I work in the Bureau of Program Integrity on the long-term care and state agency audits. My career, it spans about 32 years, of which more than 2 decades of that has been in the auditing field. So unfortunately, the auditors in my section are not as experienced. In fact, they're new, all of them, and have little to no audit experience. So my presentation today is going to talk about what was, what is, and what's proposed for the future training of my audit section. So to give you a quick picture, in the past, we had a training program that it was second to none. It really was. We had an entire department that was dedicated to just training the audit staff on a regular basis. In fact, we had requirements of obtaining a minimum of 80 credit hours every 2 years to stay current on the audit function. So unfortunately, we no longer have that department, and we no longer have training hour requirements. So having said that, this project it's an attempt to completely rebuild a new training program structure. So but before I get I discuss the needs of the audit training, I first want to explain to you who and what the purpose of Medicaid really is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history behind the Bureau of Program Integrity, and I'm going to give you a little bit about the audit responsibilities that are attached to that. And I'm also going to talk about our agency efforts at documenting what's called a knowledge transfer plan, and that includes the current landscape. And finally, I'm going to talk about briefly about my proposed future state of training. It's an enormous project, and it's definitely in the works. It's on its way, but there's few people to help. So let's start with what Medicaid is. Now, Medicaid is a joint federal and state funded program, and that provides health insurance to about 3 million low income Ohioans. So, as an entitlement program, Medicaid services are guaranteed to those that are eligible. And in fiscal 21, ODM had about $31.7 billion in combined federal and state dollars spent to provide those guaranteed services. And let me say that again, $31.7 billion. And at that annual spending, Medicaid is the largest single state program in Ohio. So ODM administers Ohio Medicaid with the assistance of the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities. There's 6 other state agencies and other various local partners. Again, at $31.7 billion expended, taxpayers can be assured there are federal requirements to ensure monitoring and oversight of that level of tax dollars spent. So to meet those federal requirements, the Bureau of Program Integrity, where I work within ODM, was created. So specifically, the Bureau of Program Integrity, which I'll refer to as BPI, came into existence in 2014. Now, prior to 2014, the oversight responsibilities with the Office of Research and Assessment and Accountability were within Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. Now, the newly created BPI became a mix of brand new and seasoned staff that were pulled from Job and Family Services. And that's when ODM was created as a standalone agency in July of 2013. I was one of the seasoned auditors that were transferred from the former ORA, as we called it, in JFS over here to ODM. And currently, BPI coordinates our oversight activities across all of our internal business units and external stakeholders. And that's in order to monitor and better detect the fraud, waste, and abuse of that $31.7 billion expended. We also monitor the providers, the subrecipient networks, and the managed care plans to better regulate program integrity risk, promote the compliance, and provide some technical assistance and training throughout Ohio's Medicaid system. As for the federal oversight requirements, 42 CFR 447.202, and I won't go into that law because it could put you to sleep. It requires Medicaid to have a system in place to ensure that appropriate audits of those Medicaid payments are made. That is that they're cost-based, and these cost-based systems require Medicaid providers to submit what we call cost reports, and they detail the actual administrative and the direct services costs they're incurring to run the programs that we're paying for through those federal dollars. That $31 billion actually is funneled through in many cases. My team is responsible for monitoring the developmental centers, the passport agencies that are providing in-home care, the nursing facilities and intermediate care facilities. And further, the team's also responsible for what is called subrecipient monitoring. Monitoring subrecipients is a requirement found under 2 CFR 200, and it includes a review of current work performed by those subrecipients and the resolution of any required audits. So, knowing I just said a lot, let me clarify that a little bit. When ODM receives money awarded from the federal government for a specific purpose, we oftentimes pass that through on to another entity. And sometimes these are large dollars, and sometimes just even a small portion of the federal dollars that are passed on to another entity so that they could administer portions of the federal award, regardless of the amount the entity receiving that award, and to carry out a portion of those Medicaid programs. It creates what's called the subrecipient relationship. I've listed some of those oversight requirements on this slide, although it's not inclusive. There's too many to even consider putting you all to sleep. So I've listed some of the more high level required tasks that have to be completed. And this has to be done with very few auditors to conduct the work. What used to be an audit staff of 112 auditors is now 8. So putting that into a little perspective, and again, they're all new. So to make matters worse, in 2020, key seasoned staff started leaving at the alarming rates as many industries were seeing. And no question, ODM has suffered greatly, and there were no viable backups to take their place, unfortunately. And recognizing that void, our human resource department launched what was termed as a knowledge transfer management plan initiative. And it was an attempt to proactively plan for sharing knowledge in order to build a more collaborative, aligned, and informed workforce. And it sounded really good. And for some areas in the agency, admittedly, it was a perfect plan. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case for all areas, especially my area in the Bureau of Program Integrity. And as I previously explained, there's a lot of programs and there's a multitude of unique rules attached to each one of them. So one size does not fit all when it came to these knowledge transfer plans. So what I'm displaying is what the agency's first attempt at documenting the knowledge base of its staff. And I'm only going to present just the first few pages of my knowledge transfer plan. It's known as a KTP, and it gives you a glimpse of what was attempted. And now what's on this document is a 40,000 foot view of what I do, and doesn't contain all necessarily elements to pick up where I leave off. So if I should leave the department, ideally this document is supposed to reflect where somebody could pick up. Again, it was a good first start. And this page 1 reflects what we called a critical task, and specifically listed for me is referencing my subcontractor audit review oversight critical task. It goes on, but the second page is just a continuation of my first critical task, listing what we call the fifth. I guess it's just the attributes of the position and what's required in that particular critical task. So when you get to the third page, you finally finish up that first one and it begins the second critical task. And it's a lot of information. And again, 40,000 foot view, it will not in any way give to a successor in my position much of a training of any kind. What it will do is tell them what they're responsible for. And you can see on there, my second critical task is the state agency monitoring of ODE, ODA, DODD, Department of Health, Mental Health Addiction Services, all those sub-recipients of Medicaid. It starts and it follows the same structure as that first critical task. And it goes on for about 28 pages. Now, keep in mind, it's only a high level. In the successor plan, you see in those final columns that are blank, that means that the most critical and important tasks that I'm assigned and required by the federal government listed have absolutely no plan to pass the knowledge on. This took an enormous amount of time. And again, with no plan to pass on that knowledge, it's a 40,000 foot view at the critical task, what I'm responsible for. So at best, it provides an area where someone new walking into my position, if I would leave, could at least have an idea where to find some information on our internal drives. And that, in a nutshell, is what at best this knowledge transfer plan did for our department. And I'm of the opinion we're just pouring money down the drain. The Great Resignation, it left a lot of holes in our staffing, leaving us with minimal knowledge base. And as of today, there are approximately 186 unfilled positions in my agency. And to make matters worse, all of the former audit work that we had completed from those seasoned staff that used to be here, it was sent to storage. And based on statutory timelines, that information doesn't stay in storage forever, and it's since been destroyed. So we are now in a reactive mode to everything, and we have to train as we go on the fly. And in my absence, the team just simply has to figure it out, which oftentimes is wrong and must be redone, which clearly is an enormous waste of resources. Um, and I also need to mention that the most expensive of those options that we're utilizing in the current state, we're using contractors that we hired to conduct those audits unable to be completed based on the knowledge base of our staff auditors. And that's just to remain in compliance with the federal regulations. So here's the pictorial overview of our current state of affairs. I suppose you can surmise from the pictures of my employees here, they seem quite confused and often feel lost. Morale is very low in times of starting new books of work. And although these truly aren't my employees, I have often witnessed these same exact expressions on my team's faces. And when we're getting ready to start yet another new book of work with the limited number of staff, over 100 auditors down to 8, is it is a big statement as to what can and what doesn't get done. So I skipped a slide. I'm sorry. Let me jump back here. I came up with the idea to develop an online on-demand training program, and I used the SWOT analysis to present to my leadership to gain approval for this project. Now, our strengths identified to sell this, it's going to incur minimal cost because we could leverage the current technology we already have. In fact, we have a learning on demand tool available through our HR department that just hasn't been tapped as a resource. And so any training that's done, it's been repetitive over and over on the job training, can now be utilized in this new proposed on-demand learning environment. And I would also leverage the remaining knowledge base with those seasoned staff before new retirements are announced. And clearly time is of the essence. Our seniority level in many cases is high. So there's no more time than like today that this has to be done. The critical need has to be implemented very, very quickly. So that has again been started. I identified some weaknesses. If we don't implement the plan, the majority of untrained staff, it's going to lead to improper oversight. And there are, as I said, those federal regulations requiring us to properly oversight. And it could also lead to non-compliance and citations on ODM from the federal government. And so we often are audited by OBM, which ensures that we're following the federal regulations. Now, the identified opportunities were the training new staff electronically before pairing them on the audit team. And we have the ability with this on-demand learning to test their knowledge before they begin work. And it would reduce confusion and mistakes and having to redo things. So the training would also be available to staff for refresher training before restarting a specific type of audit work that we complete on an annual basis. We have an audit calendar. At certain times of the year, we're conducting certain types of audits, and rather than relearning or reteaching, the on-demand learning will be available. And finally, the threats to this are if ineffective oversight and the inability to detect out fraud, waste, and abuse, taxpayers aren't going to be happy. And if not implemented quickly, the few remaining seasoned staff are going to retire before completing the training modules. So time, again, is of the essence to get this done. As I stated, I proposed to leverage the learning on demand training platform within the Bureau, which every employee will be required to utilize. There's going to be a welcome video from our Bureau Chief with the overview of every section within the department. I'm also currently collaborating with our policy area of ODM for each specific audit area. They are going to be providing the beginning portion of the training regarding the rules and the regulations and those policies that are requirements attached to the specific audit. It's going to include a test of your knowledge. Those will be questions that have to be answered correctly before the auditor going through the training can actually continue through the training. The second portion of the Learning on Demand video training will be completed by our lead auditors and other subject matter experts. The leveraging of the seasoned staff will be used for the second part of the training in these on-demand videos. In their portion, it's going to focus more on the records review, the documentation requirements, and the completion of the actual audit work. This again is going to include a test of your knowledge, and those questions are going to have to be answered correctly to be able to finish the training. And then the final portion of that training is going to be a recap by the audit manager, such as myself, of what was learned through the on-demand training in that session, and provide a certificate of completion. And that certificate of completion is going to be required before they can actually start on the book of work that is at hand. To date, I've started, actually, we've had 4 of the slide presentations already developed for the nursing centers, the developmental centers, the ICF, those privatized ICF IIDs, and then the passport agency audits. And these are, again, they're in the initial building phases. The actual presentations are done. The voiceovers are in the works. And our policy area has just started for the first part of that video I discussed. We're meeting with them on a monthly basis right now. And so we're truly in the infancy stage of building this. It's an enormous project, however, it's necessary. And it is becoming a reality. So I do anticipate having these 4 programs in place within the next 12 months. And I thank you for letting me share my project with all of you. I want to thank Rob and Alexandria and the rest of all of you. This particular coursework that I have elected to take, it provided a number of tools that I was able to implement immediately with my team. And so I say thank you, because the team has become more cohesive as a result of some of these activities that we did that I carried on to my team. So that is my presentation, and I am going to leave it there for any questions.
Well, thank you, Christine. This is like a monumental task. I mean, it's, oh my gosh. It's like what you said, tens of billions of dollars that you're responsible for. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know that this whole concept of the Great Resignation is something that I see on a daily basis. I get calls all the time for different state agencies, local agencies, and everybody is just trying to keep the lights on, let alone being effective and efficient. So, the idea of having these on-demand trainings is crucial as your team evolves over time. So, I know you're just starting to put these in place, so you haven't figured that out yet, but is there an evaluation process? I know you have that the participants have to successfully complete those exams or the quizzes at the end of each content piece, but is there overall evaluation from the actual department as to determine if this type of things is working, and also like how you're going to continue to expand and improve it over time? Have you got to that point yet, or not really?
So actually, yes, they were suggestions made from our internal folks. They had a couple ideas where they want to add like a percentage of pass and failure attempts at the actual module itself. And what they indicated is clearly every year, annually, before these are put out for review by the staff prior to starting that annual book of work, that they be amended with a a meeting. We have currently quarterly meetings on our calendars where the policy in our area would meet together to review the presentation to see if there's updates. Because one thing is for sure in state government, rules will change regularly. Like we kind of change our socks. So absolutely, we will be updating these on a regular basis. And the feedback from the team will, because I've implemented a lot of those tools, it seems like the morale in our department has really become like a family, and
Okay.
people are more willing to speak up now. So if there's something that needs added, in fact, leveraging a number of them, they've taken it to new staff to say, hey, can you look at this for me and tell me if there's something that doesn't make sense to you? So we're absolutely collaborating as an entire team internally, and our policies on an annual basis. We're going to look at them and update as necessary.
So the next question was going to be around that whole concept of the feedback loop and getting the peers and the employees, participation in this. One of the things I first came up with, or one of the ideas I had, was to like have them add to whatever the training should be. So getting the feedback of where the gaps are and, how do you close that out? But I guess my question is, like, you probably just can't have Susie or Joe or Tommy put together a video until you make sure that they are on top of, make sure the content is, correct and approved. So how do you vet that as far as figuring out, like, okay, here's the gap, here's the problem we have, but how do we make sure that we've got the right information documented that needs to go back to the team? Like, is there a process internally there that you are working on to determine what the correct training should be?
Absolutely. Actually, that's a great question. One thing about Medicaid for sure is anything we record or have internally for training purposes is a discoverable document. And regularly, we'll have disappointed providers who want to sue the department for different things. And they will actually ask for those items used for training currently. So everything we do actually goes through our legal department, and they will be our biggest sounding board as far as what may or may not belong into that, if that makes sense. If things should be in there that we're missing, they have to actually sign off on all of it prior to actual use, because if we have something that is incorrect, it can and will be used against us in any court of law. So absolutely, we do have that process to sign off and the review to ensure that it is or isn't correct, and that is at our legal level.
And I have one more question before I'll pass it over. I have a bunch of questions, but I want to get audience participation. Are there any resources at the federal level or like peer organizations like other Medicaid programs across the country that you partner with to kind of share best practices or this type of training? Is there any other things you can plug into so you don't have to recreate the wheel create the wheel from scratch?
We do have conferences. They have a program integrity group that is a mixture of states where we collaborate in levels of, we meet other people from other states and we have the opportunity to discuss what they are currently using. And to be honest with you, Ohio is behind the times. Like I said, we had a training department that was second to none. We led probably the nation in our educational capacity. Other states have taken that over. So we have leveraged other states to see if they have anything we can use. But each state is different with Medicaid, which makes it difficult. So we can't just take like a template that's we used in, say, Hawaii and bring it over here, because the way they administer their Medicaid programs differently than, say, here in Ohio.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, I'm going to zip it. Alexandra, I'm going to pass the baton to you. So if you have any feedback or questions, take it away.
Thanks so much, Rob. Good morning, everyone. So far, we just have one audience question. So I see that there's quite a few of you out there. We ask that you please send in any questions or feedback that you have for Christine, either in the designated Q&A box or the chat box works. Either way is perfectly fine, and we will address all those questions and comments. And that goes for all the presentations for today and tomorrow and for the 15th. So our first question and only question so far comes from Kristen Hall. Kristen wants to know a little more about how your team has responded to the idea of participating in the peer training video. So can you expand a little more about that?
So the team has been amazing. I am very fortunate. As small as our audit shop is, we have some really dedicated staff, some that just go over and above on the research, and they're constantly asking where can they help. So their response has been overwhelmingly positive to the peer review structure, and they seem to be really excited about having something in place that they've taken extra time and even asked to stay later in days just to be able to help with this. So I've had a very positive response. I'm very fortunate to have a group of people that are dedicated.
That's so great to hear. So we do have another question and a comment. So let me actually pull up the comment first. Our comment comes from Danielle Romanowski. Danielle says, great job. It was clear that you know the topic well and did a fantastic job presenting. Thank you so much, Danielle, for that feedback. And we do have another question from Mark Neeser. Mark asks, are you generally hiring auditors right out of college, early entry employees?
I would love to hire right out of college. And that's because they're so willing to learn. As I age into it, I did tell you guys kind of similar to how old I was when I said I'd been around for 32 years, but I started at 18, so I'm not that old. But I will say we are on the, how do I say this in a polite way? We're disadvantaged in our hiring practice right now because a lot of employers are offering teleworking options. And Medicaid has become kind of different in their approach. We have what's called a hybrid structure, where you actually physically have to go into the office a minimum of 2 days a week. And so that's been kind of a hard sell to many. Job and Family Services has just as many vacancies going out there with auditors at the same level, doing similar work. But if, the newer generation likes to work from home and doesn't like to go into an office. So we're losing a lot of candidates to the telework environment based on our hybrid environment. So right now we have been fortunate enough to get people apply. We've actually hired people, and 2 days later they started a different job because they got a telework job from home. So we're kind of at disadvantage right now, and hopefully it gets better. I'm always positive outlook, thinking that things always get better. There's nothing very, very bad, nothing very, very good, lasts very, very long.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that seems to be an industry trend from what we're hearing too, is that organizations who may not have, the remote work options are sort of at a disadvantage for hiring. But I appreciate your optimistic look moving forward. So we do have a few more comments in the chat. So Sergeant Martin says, kudos to being the first presenter. You did great. And I agree, sometimes being the first presenter can be a challenging feat. So you did a great job with that, Christine.
Thank you.
And then Deanna Clifford, one of our advisory board members from Ohio University, says, I've worked for the state and with the Department of Medicaid and know what a monumental lift this would be for a much larger team, not to mention the small one that Christine has. Congratulations for all of the work you've done so far.
Thank you.
And then one more comment and one more question, and this comes from one of our teammates, Kat. Kat says, awesome job. You present very well, and it's obvious you are confident in your work. And then she asks, and I appreciate this question because it's something that you all will need to think about, hint, hint, for your paper coming up, because it's something you'd address. Was there any session in particular from PMA 8 that really helped you with your project?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, we had been paired up, and I would assume they did the same thing where you had to like run your project by another person. And, you know, having that one-on-one touch base with somebody outside your organization. I was paired up coincidentally with somebody from Job and Family Services, where I used to work for so many years before I was moved over into ODM when the division kind of took place and they became that standalone. That interaction with that individual directly was so helpful. And really, some of these slides that you're seeing were actually built within our sessions. So I basically took what we did during some of our sessions and flopped them onto a new background. And this is what it looks like. So it saved a lot of time, to be honest with you. Not any one particular, but mostly that interaction, that one-on-one. I thought it was really great that you guys set that up. That was perfect.
Well, that's so great, Christine. I absolutely love that feedback. You know, that was something that we tested out actually with your cohort. I believe PMA 8 was the first cohort that we tested out the peer review portion. And it's something that we have since expanded upon, and we've introduced earlier in the Public Management Academy. So I know PMA 9 had that opportunity, and we're even introducing that opportunity even sooner in PMA 10. So we so appreciate that feedback. I'm glad that was helpful for you. And those are all the questions and comments that we have today, and we are out of time. And thank you so much for presenting today.
Thank you. I thank you all.
Great job, Christine. I really appreciate it. Way to get us kickstarted. No pressure on anybody else, but we started off on a very high note. As we call up our next presenter, who is going to be Chief Deidre Jones from the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. Just wanted to say to remember to complete the evaluations. Alexandra is dropping that in the chat. So feel free to complete the evaluations. Again, if you can't find a link for that particular person, let us know and we'll go from there. But that feedback is going to be crucial. As Chief Jones starts coming up to become a presenter, I just wanted to say that her project has to do with a new initiative called the Transit Ambassador Program, and it's just a new way of kind of engaging with the public, and I really like it because of the different approach, especially with our current social justice issues that we have going on, issues in the community, that they are trying to think outside the box and be more compassionate and develop different strategies, which I think is actually, as RTA has traditionally done, been a best practice, and they are been traditionally one of the best transit agencies in the entire country. And I'm not surprised to see this kind of project and have Chief Jones' leadership with this. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to Chief Deidre Jones. Take it away.
I am Chief Deidre Jones, and I am the Chief of Police and Director of Security for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. My presentation is on the new Transit Ambassador Program. So the idea of the Ambassador Program came about in the summer of 2021 from our Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Flounce Caver. And what it was is he envisioned an unarmed, non-sworn personnel group that would perform a variety of services on the transit system that do not require a law enforcement presence. The program also frees up police officers to handle more serious assignments. So Andrea, Alexander, if we could go to the next slide. I want you to watch a quick video on the public's response to our announcement of the program.
Last month, a man was shot and killed on the Greater Cleveland RTA Health Line. Then, just last week, a woman was assaulted and a man was stabbed in separate incidents at two rapid stations on the west side.
We see a lot of riders, they feel unsafe at night, especially at the rapid stations. It's dark. There's not a lot of riders.
Now, all of that violence happened in just the last 3.5 weeks. It has some Greater Cleveland RTA riders concerned about their safety. News 5 investigator Joe Paganakis reports rider groups want more eyes on the streets to bolster public safety.
Clevelanders for Public Transit says recent violence has them asking the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority to establish a group of transit ambassadors to increase security presence at transit stations like this one, bus stops, and onboard buses.
I ride the bus at night. I ride the bus on the weekends at night.
Marvetta Rutherford has ridden Greater Cleveland RTA for 50 years and says the March 21st fatal shooting of 21-year-old David Cotrelis on the Euclid Avenue Health Line.
It's a terrible set of circumstances.
And 2 separate violent attacks last week at the West Boulevard Cadell Rapid Station and the Rapid Station at Hopkins Airport have her demanding Greater Cleveland RTA take on additional security measures.
Could they do a better job? Yes, of course they could.
Less people are riding, so the less people you get in these stations and on the buses, the more chance you have for crime.
Chris Stocking with Clevelanders for Public Transit believes deterring transit crime with a group of paid transit ambassadors is the best way to improve safety. Ambassadors who would act as another set of eyes on the ground, check fares and assist new riders with payment systems, perform station and shelter audits to keep them clean and report needed repairs, and assist with community intervention to help individuals with a crisis, homelessness, or mental health or substance abuse issues.
This police budget just keeps on growing, so I'd really like to see that money, rededicated to transit ambassadors and less, over policing.
We need that kind of visibility, and safety is a must.
Transit Union President William Nix, who represents 1,600 RTA drivers, facility and service workers, says he would welcome citizen ambassadors, but says the recent violence highlights a need for additional RTA police.
And my members are worried. They want to go home to their families every day, and they're trying to watch and look and observe.
Meanwhile, Marvetta says greater rider involvement is also needed to deter bus line violence.
If you see something that's not quite right, be mindful of it, and by all means, let them know.
But on Wednesday, the RTA announced that it is taking applications to become a transit ambassador. Starting wage $19.58 an hour. If you'd like information on how you can apply, it's posted right now on news5cleveland.com, or you can use the News 5 app.
Thank you, Alexandra. I do want to remind the group that the creation and implementation of this program began months before this news story was aired. So there are a few groups who want to literally defund the police, but who also want to feel safer while riding the system. So the ultimate goal of this program is to not only provide customer service, but to serve as a deterrent for those who misbehave and wish to commit crimes on our system. So after discussions with Dr. Caver, we agreed that in order to achieve and maintain excellent policing, there is a need for police reform because it is important for transit police to constantly make improvements because policing cannot remain stagnant. We wanted to create a program that reflects a new approach to progressive policing. So what exactly is progressive policing? My definition of a progressive policing agency is one that looks beyond the formally accepted, or what I like to call antiquated, concepts of law enforcement and enacts new policies and procedures that benefit both law enforcement officers and the community it serves. So with progressive policing and community engagement, the Transit Ambassador Program does reduce the law enforcement footprint on the GCRTA transit systems. That includes the buses and the rails. It also integrates unarmed professionals to handle non-criminal issues, provides enhanced connection with community, and address rider concerns. So what we decided was that we would take a two-pronged approach to this, and that is to include transit ambassadors and our crisis intervention specialists. Next slide, please. So the duties of our transit ambassadors, first of all, they will fall under the umbrella of supervision of transit police, and they're partnered with Service Quality. Now, Service Quality is a department under RTA that serves as a watchdog for all activities that occur on the system. They will also provide general information assistance to riders, members of the public, assist them with navigating the system, also with boarding and disembarking our trains and our buses. They will routinely ride our transit and our bus lines and maintain that high degree of visibility. Next slide, please. They will also advise service quality of any security or safety hazard related issues. They will also monitor and assist at public events or special events. And those special events can include anything from our hiring fairs, which we will have transit ambassadors represented there. And also with our upcoming holiday programs, we have Holiday Santa on the trains and on the trolleys, so they will also be there. And they will also work to maintain a safe and clean environment for all of the users of the system. Next slide, please. So the transit ambassadors shall be identified by red short or long sleeve polo shirts, khaki pants, and black boots. During cold weather months, they will wear winter jackets with reflective lettering that identify them as transit ambassadors. Next slide, please. Our crisis intervention specialists are licensed social workers, and they have specialized training. They are currently embedded with transit police and in what we call a co-responder program. So they ride along with an officer and respond with the officer to calls for service when we have people in crisis. They will perform mental health, homelessness, crisis, and substance abuse outreach to people that traverse the system. And they will also work to diffuse immediate crises and serve as a gateway to resources. So what they will do is provide a variety of services and resources to people who need varied levels of assistance. They're also working to establish relationships with all of our social service partners. Next slide, please. So our crisis intervention specialists shall be identified by black short and long sleeve polo shirts, khaki pants, and black boots. And during the cold weather months, they shall also wear black winter jackets with reflective lettering that identify them as crisis intervention specialists. We had initially, just as an FYI, one of the things that we kind of went around back and forth was with should they wear badges, and we did not want them to wear anything that gave the public an idea that they work exclusively for the police department or had any kind of enforcement emblems on their shirts. So we figured it would be best just to have crisis intervention specialists and transit ambassadors on their uniforms, nothing that says transit police, even though they do fall under transit police. Next slide, please. So Transit Police Department currently works with these social service agencies, but we also are looking to partner with additional social service groups to utilize resources and determine best practices when engaging those on the system who need specialized assistance. Trauma assistance, just an example with the May Dugan Center. We're looking at trauma assistance for victims of violent crimes that occur on our system. And this includes, if you go back to the video where you have operators who have been assaulted, this also includes our own employees. Next slide, please. So the scheduled hours are, first of all, we have 10 transit ambassadors and we have 4 crisis intervention specialists. They work first and second shifts. And as you can see on the slide, the hours fluctuate between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. But the hours are subject to change based on any special events, any sports games, any type of events that the city may put on that require additional attention to our trains and our bus lines. So 1 to 2 teams per shift. And right now, as a starter, with our 10 transit ambassadors and 4 CIS personnel, we are putting specialized focus or special emphasis on our health line and also at our rail stations. Next slide, please. So with our transit ambassador training, there is a lot of training that they have to go through, including 40 hours of crisis intervention training that's given by the Adams Board, including human trafficking, de-escalation, defensive tactics, They also have to participate in a field orientation, which is like a ride along where they shadow officers on a daily basis. And our transit ambassadors are trained in a special reporting system, which is called our ArcGIS Survey 123. That's where they indicate or highlight the number of interactions that they've had with customers and the type of interactions. So next slide, please. Our CIS training is everything that the transit ambassadors have, including the first aid and Narcan training, but their reporting system is a little bit different because they can actually go into our police system to make actual police reports that go into the system. So next slide, please. So with regard to next steps, as you can see, we've already completed all of our goals for quarters 1, 2, and 3. We are currently in the 3rd to 4th quarter of 2022, where we are looking at our program evaluation. This is fluid, so we have just started this program evaluation, and we're looking at other agencies for best practices as far as how they're evaluating their transit ambassador programs. Next slide, please. So with a SWOT analysis, we looked at the strengths of this program, and one of the things that we like is that our staff is diverse, our ambassadors and our CIS personnel. It reflects the community of riders that we have. We have people who are retired, who are starting as a second career. We have some young people. We have members of the LGBTQ community who are also part of our staff. It frees up officers, again, to respond to more serious calls. It improves visibility on the trains and on our bus systems, and improves customer service. Those are our strengths. Our weaknesses, though, and this is a big one, is turnover. With the pay rate being at about $20 an hour, we're looking at the possibility that we may be losing some of our staff to other jobs. And we didn't stop at just those 10 people. So we keep people in what we call our bucket of a list of individuals who have applied, so that if we do lose somebody, we move down the list and look to hire, so to fill that spot almost immediately. Also with the turnover, because RTA is such a large department or such a large agency, we're also looking at some of our people who may decide after 6 months or a year that they may want to move to a different department within RTA. And that may even include transit police. So we also have a shortage of transit police officers to respond to emergencies on the system, so that if something, God forbid, something does happen and ambassadors do call, hopefully we can respond immediately, but that could be one of our weaknesses and also one of our threats to this program. So opportunities, again, improve visibility, improve customer service, and the opportunity to expand the program. And also it improves the perception of transit police. Again, I talked about how there are some groups who want to defund the police. We are hoping that by taking this proactive approach, that the perception of transit police connecting with the community and having that positive relationship with the community does improve. Again, with threats, we're talking about the loss of personnel, the failure to make any kind of improvements or modifications to the program, and again, negative community feedback, but we're working hard to make that look different. So next slide, please. So with the program evaluation, we've taken a collaborative approach, which includes all stakeholders in the program. We believe that the importance of the collaborative evaluation is about getting all stakeholders involved, and it promotes ownership, of course, and increased creativity, because you're allowing for different perspectives. Those who have life experiences bring perspectives that give us an opportunity to learn from each other. It also increases the likelihood of our program achieving all of its objectives, the ability to change and improve on the system. And we are looking at reviewing our program initially every 6 months. Next slide, please. So what does the evaluation criteria look like? we're talking about, and again, this is fluid. We're still in the process of creating this evaluation criteria, but we're looking at the number of rider and customer contacts by our transit ambassadors and by our CIS personnel, the incidents, the number of incidents reported, the number of our crisis intervention specialist referrals, how many people our transit ambassadors and even our CIS personnel, how many disabled riders they assisted, any type of medical emergencies that transit ambassadors or CIS personnel were involved in and assisted in, also rider customer complaints and customer satisfaction surveys, the percentage of fare reduction, and last but not least, our crime statistics. I will say this, that we're already seeing some positive outcomes of the program. Just within the first couple of weeks of the officer or the ambassadors hitting the ground in September, one of our ambassadors assisted a rider with a medical emergency and until EMS arrived. We also had another situation where a member of our CIS group responded with an officer to assist an operator when her bus was struck by gunfire. And just last week, and I'm seeing these reports on a regular basis, but just to highlight another one, we had a CIS officer, CIS personnel respond with an officer to one of our platforms, our transit platforms, for a person who was suicidal. After about an hour, that CIS member was able to not only connect this person with resources, but also got the person to agree to seek mental help, and that person was transported to an emergency room that had a mental health services. So we are already seeing positive outcomes, and we believe that we will see actually more positive outcomes, and that will expand this program sometime down the road. So are there any questions that you guys have of me about this program? I will say that we are very excited about this, and it's making some great strides just in the first couple months that it's been in existence. So any questions?
Well, I just want to say great job. That's my question. It's fantastic work. I know it's still kind of working out the kinks as far as unveiling it, but I just want to say congratulations, good luck with everything. And you have a wonderful team over there yourself, but also when you mentioned Doc Caver and just a lot of people that are very compassionate as far as, the services that you provide. When you think about it, you're like, oh, well, you just are supposed to get people from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things that occur in between that period, in that time, and you have to account for it. And I really appreciate the fact that you're thinking outside the box, or outside the bus to get that done. So, Alexander, do you have any questions or comments? I'm just going to pass it over to you for time's sake.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob. So it looks like we have a few questions that came through too so far. Our first one is from one of your fellow cohort members, so Molly. Molly asks, you've identified how ambassadors will be identified through specific uniforms. Yes. Is the RTA participating in any customer education so that riders will know in advance how to identify those ambassador uniforms?
Actually, what they've done is they put out we've been working with marketing, who has put out a campaign, but what we're also doing, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, on our buses, we have the ability to have video on our buses. So we've also put out video of our transit ambassadors so that people who ride the buses, whether they see that ambassador on that bus or not, they know that the ambassador exists. The other thing that we're doing to increase our visibility is we're doing hop on and hop offs. So our ambassadors will jump off the buses and engage people at the bus stops. They may do this, get back on the bus, go down a few more stops and do the same thing, hop off, engage people and let them know that they exist. There's also some flyers that have been handed out to people who ride the bus. We've also engaged our operators on this process. Before we even put boots on the ground, our ambassadors and our CIS personnel rode with the operators so that we can build that relationship between the operators and our transit ambassadors and CIS personnel. So it's definitely out there. And I'm always open to ideas of ways that we can even make this bigger so that we can create more visibility. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question comes from OCPM Advisory Board member, Deanna Clifford. Deanna asks, what data set did you use as your baseline from which to measure improvement? Did you set measurable goals for the impact your ambassador/CIS programs would have?
Actually, that comes under our program evaluation, which is still fluid at this point. There are some definite things that we will be measuring. Again, customer contact is huge. What the perception of these ambassadors and CIS personnel is also huge. Our CIS personnel and their referrals when reaching out to our unsheltered people and our people who are in crisis and have substance abuse issues, those are huge. One thing that I can say that I'm proud of is that with this program expanding, the way that it is expanding, we are bringing on additional social service resources. We've actually been contacted by social service agencies that we've never even heard of within Cuyahoga County who have said, I want to be a part of this program. So we can measure the effectiveness of, especially with our CIS personnel, we can measure the effectiveness of our referral services, if the programs are working. Again, this is fluid, so we have quite a few ideas on the table. We just haven't settled on all of them, but we are open to making those look different as we go along. We'll see which ones work, which ones we get little impact, and the ones that have a huge impact. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's great that you've been able to incorporate other partners throughout this process. That's wonderful. We have a few more questions. I'm going to try to speed through these. Allison asks, how have you seen the community respond to this initiative?
So far, so good. The funny thing about this is when we first announced that we were going to be hiring transit ambassadors, and we had a job fair about a week after the announcement came out, we had about 150 people that came to the job fair, and of those, 102 of those people applied for the transit ambassador position. So it feels like the demand or the interest is definitely out there. And as I was saying earlier, we keep names in a bucket so that if we have an ambassador that may leave the program, we can go straight into that bucket and look at that list. And if there are people those people are still interested in that program, then we also work to bring them on board as soon as possible.
Thank you. We do have two more questions, but we only really have time for one more.
Okay.
So our last question for today comes from actually one of our student assistants, Courtney, who is a current CSU student. She said that really great work. This has made me more prone to taking the RTA. Are there plans to make students aware of this? All students pay for a U-Pass, but it seems as though many students do not use it.
That is actually a great question, and you've given me another idea. So I will work with marketing to make sure that, especially because we have a lot of ambassadors on the health line, and I know that it goes through CSU, I will reach out to marketing today to see about a strategy to get that information to students so they'll be more likely to use our system. So that's a great question and great idea, and I appreciate that. And it will be brought forward. So thank you so much.
Excellent, and that is our time today. Thank you so much, Chief. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Sorry about the problems. Yeah, I apologize. No okay, all right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chief, and congratulations. Want to say that RTA has been one of our longtime stakeholders, longtime partners, and actually they are the organization that helped us actually create the Public Management Academy. So the Public Transit Management Academy was the base model that we used to create the PMA program for the Ohio Certified Public Manager program. So in case anybody was wondering, that's just how long and deep our partnership is with RTA. So can't thank them enough, and Chief Jones for bringing another innovative project to our table. So thank you so much. Quickly here to move on to one of our other main partners, CMSD, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I'm excited to bring to the presentation stand now, Mr. Mark Mazer, who is over in their safety security department. So it sounds like we are in the safety security zone here with our presentations over the next several of them. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Mark to show us your, you share your screen there and bring up your presentation. And Mark is going to talk about, I think, something that is a really vital and important topic. Not only did we talk about last project about the concept of crisis intervention specialist from the public side of things, but Mark is going to be talking about an actual presentation for those that provide service, frontline service, the safety and security officers for their own mental health awareness. And really excited to have Mark share some of that from his personal experience and some things he's trying to put together. Take it away.
I couldn't start this presentation. I couldn't even do this presentation without the assistance of Lieutenant Shanae McCoy-Gibbons. She's been a superstar for me. I'm not real technological. Good morning, everybody. This is a tough act to follow. Chief Jones and Christine, outstanding job by both of them. As you can see from my first slide, my project deals with mental health as it relates to law enforcement and first responders throughout. And it did, particular where I work, safety and security, our security officers here. This presentation, this project, I'm trying to bring awareness to various places that officers can go when they're struggling with anxiety, trauma, PTSD. Officers need to know where they could go if they need some sort of counseling. They need to go to talk to somebody. What I want to do is I want to extend an invitation to members of safety and security here at CMSD. They have to deal with a myriad of issues every single day at the schools. Security officers at our schools, as you could quite imagine, the inner city school, they deal with everything. They meet and greet kids getting off the bus. They man the metal detectors. They go through, they become confidants. They become parents because of broken homes. They go through a whole lot. At the same time, they're tasked to keep everybody safe, respond to teachers, administrators, all in this post-pandemic world. We all know that lately things have been just going wacky. That has spread to our schools. The lockdowns have not helped our schools and our students. All the while, when they get done at the end of the day, and they have to go home and maintain a life. They have to be coaches, and they have to make dinner, and they have to do that. It's a very, very daunting task for our security officers. I'm here to give avenues for people if they're struggling with trauma or stress. Here at CMSD, we're all considered educators. All of our emails are signed Mark Mazer, educator. That's who we are. And we strive to create an atmosphere that's fair and just and a good environment for education and learning. At CMSD, on the right side of the screen, you can see in our safety and security department, we have about 13 different services that we employ. And the goal is to keep teachers, administrators, and students safe, all the while creating an atmosphere conducive to learning. In safety and security, we're attempting to promote a more positive system as it relates to their jobs. And by positive, I mean quality of life. The idea of quality of life is most important to me, which is why I've become involved in this. We want our officers to be happy, content in their job. That makes for a better relationship with students, teachers, and administrators, and also for themselves. They go through an awful lot. I hesitate to do this, but first, a little background. That funny looking guy right there is me. I'm a retired Cleveland police officer. My dad was a Cleveland police officer, so we're sort of a legacy family. I'm currently an investigative sergeant with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I don't have stripes on in that picture because I don't take good pictures. I've been married for 40 years. And the reason why I have that on the slide is because it's important. During my course of my career, I've had a support system. I've had a solid support system. I've raised 2 grown men. I'm a sports enthusiast. I'm a Knights of Columbus guy. I fought in Golden Gloves. That's why my nose looks like it does. But I've gotten through my entire career with a good support system, and 41 years is important. That number 41. What I bring to the table, I believe, is a wealth of experience and knowledge to this current employment, which is why I'm so passionate about this project. I really am. I began this journey just after we started PMA 9, and I started research, and I've done a ton of research. I've been through a lot in my career, just like every police officer that's worth their weight. They've been through a lot. Every police officer has war stories. We all have war stories. Some people love to hear them at parties. Oh man, I love that story. Some are good, some are bad, some are worse. Some of the worst experiences I've had. As a result of those experiences, I've developed what Dr. Bessel van der Kolk terms PTSD. I have PTSD. First to admit it. Sort of a veneer on me, but I have it. And Dr. van der Kolk is the foremost authority on trauma and PTSD. He wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's enlightening. It was the first book I picked up when I decided to do this project. He defines PTSD as a mental health condition where a person is triggered by events that they witnessed or experienced, traumatic experiences, and symptoms include sleeplessness, flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety, depression, and ultimately suicide. I have what they call, or he calls, cumulative PTSD. Chief Jones may know this. Other police officers that have been doing this for a long time have cumulative PTSD. You have guys in the military that do a 2 or 4 year hitch in the Army or the Marine Corps, and they're done. A lot of guys saw a lot of things and they come back with PTSD. Imagine first responders in the state of Ohio, at least, to get a full pension, 33 years on the job. You see a lot in 33 years. I saw a lot of things. 33 years to get a pension. That's the payoff. So that's where we're at. And you see a lot of things. I've got a lot of stories. I've got a million stories, and none of them, some of them are good, but one of them that stays with me, has stayed with me for my entire life till right now, December 1st, 2022. So it's a story time. I was assigned to the 4th District in Cleveland Southeast Side, and I was an FTO, a field training officer. FTO, I was training a rookie, and we got a call to go to 7441 Garden Valley, Apartment 2. Garden Valley's in the projects off Kinsman, between Kinsman and Garden Valley. As we got the call of a mental female, assist EMS. That was the call. Rookie says to me, what should I make of this? And I said, I don't know. We're going to play it by ear, but follow my lead. Some of these patients can be out of control, but we're going to go over there to assist EMS. As we drove down Kinsman, westbound, you could see the lights on the EMS ambulance. As we parked and pulled up to the scene, I was met by an EMS supervisor, my partner and I. EMS supervisor, I said, what do you got? Partner said, it's bad. It's real bad. Wow. This guy's an EMS supervisor that I've known for a long time, and he's telling me it's bad. As I walked into the apartment, I could see a lady that she was sort of wrapped up like a straitjacket in a sheet. It's a technique that EMS uses to subdue a person that may harm them or harm themselves. And I was hit by a smell, a very, very bad smell. And I'm trying not to make this as graphic as possible, but this is the basis for my concern, my PTSD. I was hit by this smell. As I walked into the apartment, I looked to my left and I saw what appeared to be human blood, brown, red blood. I looked to an alcove in the kitchen and discovered the bodies of 4 babies, children, dismembered. I won't go into any more graphics. As soon as that we saw that, my rookie ran out of the apartment, unashamed, ran out of the apartment, began throwing up. I had to stay. I was sort of the officer in charge at that point. I had to stay. I had to preserve a crime scene now. I had to call homicide, my supervisors. I had to call the SIU people for photographs. I was there for 3 hours. The image is burned in my brain, hasn't stopped. I got back to the district and the word got out of what we all experienced. And my OIC, my sergeant, basically said, I need to get this report done as quick as possible. Didn't seem to care about whatever I went through. I kind of muddled through a report and did like every other cop does. I headed toward the cop bar on Union Avenue. I got down there and guys were talking about it, but basically said to me, hey, suck it up, kid. Because you got to understand, back in the 1980s, you didn't want to show weakness. You were branded. Not a good thing. No one wants to work with you. People start questioning your ability. People think maybe he shouldn't be on this job anymore. There was nobody to turn to at that time. Cleveland Police Department did employ a police psychologist. And I heard stories about this police psychologist, and I was interested in talking to her because this was really, really bothering me. I didn't know where to turn. There was nowhere to turn. I just got the impression that I'm gonna have to take care of this by myself. With the support system of my family, the priest at my church, I got through this. I got through it all. Some guys are not so lucky. Guys go through living with PTSD for the remainder of their lives. Some guys retire and that yoke is lifted off their shoulders and they forget everything about it and they go on with their life. Some people aren't so lucky. I was looking for peer support groups, external peer support groups. Recently, there's been, in the last 25 years, I guess, police departments, fire departments, EMS have discovered and realized that there's a need for peer support groups. So unions have gotten together and there's people that gotten together and have put programs together. You just can't continue to live with this. You have to have an outlet. Effectively, that's where I'm going with this project. I want to deal with people that are our safety and security people that are dealing with issues that don't have to deal with them alone, that maybe I can help, or that I could steer them to another avenue to help them. Because you need to be aware of all the programs that exist. Without the proper guidance, bottom line is suicide. Suicide among cops has grown immeasurably. The statistics in the one corner, 2017, 18, and 19, show you how many police officers die at their own hands. Those are the FBI still compiling statistics for 21 and 22. The number has grown immeasurably. It far exceeds the number of police officers that are murdered on the streets. And as we see every weekend, police officers are murdered on the streets. But not just guns, not just weapons. Police officers are suffering with depression. They'll drink themselves to death. They're in pain from all the shots they took. They're taking pills, they're drinking, and they die at their own hands. That's very difficult to quantify. I'm not really sure how you can quantify that. No one wants to admit that they're drinking themselves to death. Once again, I want to be a guy that can help them. I want to be that guy. I want to be a guy that I could go to talk to somebody that'll talk me off the ledge, so to speak. As I began my research with this program, and I started this in April, I became aware of programs nationwide that reach out and help officers that are struggling. For example, CMSD in concert with OPBA, the Ohio Patrolman Benevolent Association, has created an EASE program. It's a good program. It's limited to only 3 visits, but it's used. They have counselors that are not police officers and can't relate to the police officer's experience. That's incredibly important. I've gone to Lake County. I've gone to wellness centers. I've talked to a number of people, and I've found vehicles, avenues where I can go if people need help. During the course of this, during the course of this, I was looking for external groups. I had a consultation with Cleveland police psychologist, Dr. Franklin, and Dr. Franklin understood where I was coming from. She was very valuable, and she turned me on to a group of guys, a group called SIX. SIX is an external peer group started by officers, for officers who are in crisis. Cops talking to cops. That's who they are. My project goal would be to incorporate this group, SIX, as an external resource that officers can utilize when they're experiencing trauma or PTSD. They're a free resource. They're outstanding and extended to active and retired officers. Active officers go through an awful lot, as we know. Retired guys go through a lot too. Where do they go once they retire? Most importantly, SIX is confidential and anonymous. SIX, where'd that name come from? SIX comes from the military term, I got your six, I got your back. These guys certainly do. They're available 24/7, 365. I've since joined that group. The group was started by Captain Jimmy Purcell and Detective Cliff Kime about 7 years ago. Started very innocently enough, as they were talking to a police officer that had experienced a double homicide. And a double homicide scene is not a nice scene to go to, but you see them and become immune to some of the stuff. At this point, this officer, sergeant, got weak in the knees, collapsed, and couldn't handle it, had to be taken home. He remembered talking to Jimmy Purcell and Cliff Kime at an in-service training and called them up and asked them, can you help me? And they met for 3 weeks, and all they did was talk. You got to understand, everybody here in SIX, we're not counselors. Most of us didn't go to college. We're not psychologists or sociologists. We're just cops talking to cops. This sergeant now became a lieutenant. He's a rock star now in the Cleveland Police Department. The program works. Program works. Cops talking to cops. What started out with 2 officers, this is a typo here, but there's more than 25, maybe we have 30 officers that we deal with now that are in our program as counselors. Again, cops talking to cops. This program has expanded to 34 cities, not 15, but 34 cities throughout Northeast Ohio. I spent late nights, a lot of late nights, going to late night roll calls in all these cities. Spent a lot of time talking to people. 6 are people that understand what's going on. 6 now vets, counselors, marriage counselors, family counselors, drug and alcohol counselors, suicide prevention. We have a team of Black, white, Hispanic, male, female. Someone doesn't work out with me, we can point them to another direction. We have unpaid counselors. None of us get paid. None of us We don't wear T-shirts and we don't wear anything to identify it. This is a word of mouth organization that has spread immeasurably. And now chiefs of police call us at different cities. Marriage is a problem. We need to get that together. When people sign up for this job, the spouses come with them. And they're unprepared for what's about to happen to them in their careers. Police officers struggle with PTSD and addictions, and it reflects in their jobs. I want to make things comfortable for people here at Safety and Security at CMSD. Looking at breaking this whole thing down, I also use the SWOT analysis. There's the strengths of this program, this project of 6, and the project I'm involved in is the anonymity, the peer support that we can provide. We can provide anonymous support. So when a chief or a commander calls us and said, hey, Mark, are you talking to somebody so-and-so? And I'll see, chief, I don't know what you're talking about. We keep it as quiet and as anonymous as possible. And it works. It's another resource for other officers. Clearly there's weaknesses for this program. Some officers are ashamed to come forward. I get that part. Currently, I've talked to our chief's office. I've talked to OPBA about this, about the union. It's a strength and a weakness because we're able to collaborate together. I think Chief Dotson here is on board with this. One of the problems is right now, I would be the only liaison, the point man for the group 6. That's okay. I'm willing to take that on. During the research, I've met a lot of people, additional law enforcement resources, and I found out other resources that could help people, not only emotionally, but physically, because wellness is all about mental and, sound body, sound mind. We got to reduce the stigma. I don't know if you remember about a couple of years ago, Kevin Love was complaining that he has some sort of mental health trauma issues. Kevin Love, $40 million a year. And he came forward, and we need more people to come forward. Police officers, as a rule, don't want to show weakness, but we need to make them comfortable when they can come to us and say, Mark, I'm struggling. And I'll say, sit down, let's talk. Call me, we'll meet somewhere, we'll do it. I understand the threats. It's a small program right now. It's just getting off the ground. It's my proposal. It's what I want to do. I truly believe this is a ministry for me, and it's why God brought me here, why he keeps me on this earth. How do I pay for stuff? How am I going to do this? How do I get word of mouth out? I have proposed that I could go to, or I've actually asked to go to in-service trainings or professional development days here at CMSD to begin to get the word out. To get the word out that people that are struggling, safety and security people that are struggling, can come to me. And if I don't have the answers, I can send them somewhere. Because during the course of this thing, I've been to Cuyahoga County, Lake County, Lucas County, Lorain County. I've talked to all the unions that are involved, not all the unions, but the unions that are involved with law enforcement. ODNRs, I've talked to people from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. I've talked to so many people. And I'm able to now find places. If people are struggling, I can point them in the right direction. Hopefully, I could talk them off the ledge, especially if they're considering something serious. Something so serious as suicide. My own partner died as a result of drinking himself to death. I saw all the signs, but I didn't help him. It's a regret I have to the rest of my life. I'm not gonna let that happen. If it's in my power, I'm gonna try to save somebody. If I can, if they come to me, I do my level best to help them. And if I can't, I've discovered resources that can. Certainly among them is our group 6. I kind of did a rollout plan when I got this thing started, well, back in April. I started with phase one, and that was the research. A lot of research was involved. Put a lot of miles on my car, and that's okay. I've talked to people here at CMSD. They seem to be amenable to this. I think this seems to be a pretty good thing. In that was phase one. That was an easy part. Phase two became a little more difficult. I did enter into an agreement with 6, not an agreement, but I'm part of the group now, and they're willing to help me. I have become a liaison. I want to become a liaison, a point person for CMSD. I've also collaborated with all these other resources, and it's worked. Enjoy it. I enjoyed this whole trip that I've been on. It's been an emotional roller coaster. I've learned so much. I got a lot more to learn. The progress to phase 3 progress is in progress. Mental health is very serious for all of us. You see people driving now all the time. It seems to be crazy, that people's crazy. Pandemic didn't help us. Police officers now have to deal with people like that, and our security people on a daily basis. So it's going to be ongoing. Mental health is ongoing. I got to get people I got to make people aware that there are resources. That's going to be my job. I want to meet with the unions again. Somehow I want to maybe create some pamphlets or brochures. At this point, 6 does not use that. 6 doesn't even have a website. 6 goes by word of mouth. Cliff Keim, the detective, he prints out cards on Vistaprint at every roll call, and he sends them out with his personal phone number and my personal phone number. And together we work together. I want to bring this to the attention of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District through our in-service training. That's what I want to do. That's how I can do it. Or our, which happens every year, and it gathers everybody together, all security personnel. And there I can get a block and talk to every one of them. Hand out cards at that point, maybe brochures if I figure out a way I could pay for that. That's the most important thing. It's most important to me. It's why I'm here. I want to conclude this presentation by saying I asked about success rates. How do we quantify success rates? I talked to a guy, Dr. Joe Parkin from Lake County, and I talked to Cliff Keim extensively. I said, hey guys, and they all said the same thing. How are you measuring success? How do you measure, how's 6 a success? Is it just the numbers, is everything going right? Does everybody come out of it smelling like roses? No, they don't. We don't get to all people. I've experienced that myself. I dealt with an officer that dealt with a child that was killed, and he was having a tough time. I don't have all the answers, but as a group, we could put it together. So as far as success, a success rating, both guys, Dr. Parkin and Cliff, said the same thing. If I could save one marriage, if I could save one guy from depression or alcohol and drug abuse, if I could save one life, then all the grants and everything that we have, the program's a success. It's the reason why I'm here. I think it's the reason why God has kept me on this earth this 66 years. That's my project. I want people to be aware of there's avenues, there's places to go. And I want to be that person to provide that avenue. Thanks for listening.
Well, you nailed it, Mark. I just wanted to say, and I'm a little emotional right now because this has really been impactful for me. I just want to say that you have done a fantastic job, not only with the development of this project, but this is definitely a passion project for you. And you used the word ministry several times, and I can't agree with you more. I know that you had some reservations about compiling this, and you did a fabulous job with the actual presentation itself. I know you had a little assist there from Shanae and some other members of your team as far as the development of it, but that's what it's all about as far as teamwork is concerned and helping each other out. But just think this is a really pertinent project, something that's really timely. This is something we're talking about social justice issues and mental health awareness across the board in our society, but we also need to provide those services for the folks that are actually out in the field trying to protect and serve our community. So really can't thank you enough for being courageous to step out there, and because of the fact of the stigma of coming out and saying that this is an issue, that's something that your peers don't want to do. And so I really appreciate the fact that you're stepping out and saying, hey, this is an issue, and I want to be an ambassador and a champion and someone that's going to help to stem this from advancing. So I want to say props there. Congratulations. I'm very proud of you. I'm so proud that you decided to make this your PMA project. And I also want to say if there's anything that we could do through our system and our network to help you spread the word, please call on us to do that as you move forward. So thank you very much. Great job.
I appreciate it. It's an ongoing project, and I'm looking forward to its progress.
Yeah, good luck. All right, I'll pass the baton over to Alexandra. Do you have any comments or feedback?
So the chat and the Q&A is actually flooded with positive feedback and comments. So I'm actually not going to read through all the positive feedback and comments. Mark, you can take some time to read through all of that just because I want to get to some questions. But the bottom line is that so many folks out in the audience were truly touched by your story. It looks like you brought a few folks to tears. So thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think you even touched some lives today. So thank you for doing that.
There should be a positive outcome to this, though. I didn't want to depress people. That's not what this is about. I want people to be made aware that there's places to go. And so there's a positive to this. And so I don't want to come down dour and bummed. I want people to leave here and say, man, there's places to go. So
definitely. I mean, in fact, a lot of people say that you are really making a positive impact, and the resources that you mentioned are just so impactful in folks' lives. So thank you for sharing those. I want to combine, just for the sake of time, two questions because they kind of go along with each other. So one of Kat's questions and one of Kristen's questions. So Kat asked, to ensure more officers get involved in SIX, could you, or do you, or have you had any plans to present this project to the force? And then Kristen kind of piggybacks off of that and says that if you have presented this to the force, how supportive or responsive have the leadership team and the folks you work with been of this project?
Well, as far as our chief's officer, Chief Dotson, I went over this whole thing, my paper. He's been supportive of it. I've been encouraged by the support that I've gotten. I have actually talked to people here at CMSD already, and not really my project. It's people coming up to me and talking to me. So it's already in the works. I would say getting the word out is going to be harder. Again, the way I'm going to do that, at least I plan to do it, is when we address everybody during in-service training. It's a week-long training. And hopefully when the coordinators put this together, I'll be able to get a block, an hour block, a 2-hour block, and I'll talk to people, tell everybody how this is, and get the word out. I already deal with a lot of situations outside of CMSD. The project here involves our safety and security at CMSD. So that's how it's going to get off the ground, I believe, through in-service and through professional development days.
Thank you so much. And I know we're up against the clock, but I do want to ask one more question, because it's something too that I know we kind of spoke about, when we met. But Chief Jones asks, how would you deal with an officer whom you determine may be suicidal, but after talking to him or her refuses your assistance?
It's a great question. It's actually happened. It didn't result in the final. It didn't result that way, but I've actually had to deal with that. Without too many details, I dealt with a person that has cancer and his wife has cancer at the same time. And I was like, wow, this is well beyond me. This is way beyond anything a cop talking to another cop. So we have referrals. We have an incredible group of people that do things. We vetted them all free, that are professional counselors, professional psychologists. Dr. Franklin from Cleveland is one of them, and she's outstanding. Sometimes you call for the pinch hitter. You got to come in and come out of the bullpen to help, because it's a little bit more than I can handle. But it has happened. There are people that are very, very close to putting a gun in their mouth. I don't know, it's too graphic, but that's the way it would happen. We saved those guys based on getting together at Bob Evans for coffee on 271 and talking everybody down. And we got everybody involved. We got them in wellness programs that not only deal with mental health, but physical. They're doing better. These two are doing very well. Can't solve cancer, but they're doing very well. One cancer's in remission. So we're doing a lot better. But it all started with the recommendation, with the conversations that us talking to another cop. I think it works. Results are there.
Well, thank you again for sharing your story and your presentation and project with us today. Like I said, there's a lot of positive comments that came through. Too many to actually go through one by one because we are past our time.
I'm sorry about that.
Again.
Yeah.
No, not at all. It was a fantastic presentation. I'm going to pass it back to Rob.
Yeah, fantastic, Mark. Unbelievable.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
job.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
Well, fantastic. Thanks a lot. We have a fantastic presentation so far. I'm so thrilled and pumped about what we've seen. Congratulations, Mark. And we're going to keep this going. And Mark's partner in crime, I'm not sure if there's any crime over there, forget that phrase, her co-worker, Yeshiva Martin, is up next, and she is also with the Cleveland Municipal School District. And Yeshiva has got a really innovative project here about using technology as a way to kind of report incidents and also create a portal that they can get it responded to and get it resolved, or at least under investigation and resolution as soon as possible. So Yeshiva, take it away.
Okay, so good morning, guys. My name is Sergeant Martin. I am I was an investigator. I'm with the Cleveland School District. I've been with the Cleveland School District for approximately 23 whole years. I started off as a security officer in the building. I worked in my building for about 9 years. I assumed a lot of roles in my building only because I wanted to help and I wanted to be there for the kids. I have a child, and I would never want my son or anybody's child to be in a school where things may happen or bullying may occur, and they may not be able to tell or scared to tell or anything. And so when they go home, that's the outlet. They go home and they tell. And so unfortunately, by the time the kids get home, parents may not be home yet. Schools are closed, barely anybody to talk to. And then the parent wants to know, like, what's going on? Okay, who can I call? And by this time it's 6 or 7 o'clock, the parent can't call anyone. And yes, we can always call CPD. But unfortunately, CPD is going to refer all complaints back to CMSD because we have our own police department and we handle those complaints. They may do, it depends on the situation and the problem. They may do a report, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to forward that parent back to CMSD. And so this is where we need to be able to at least help the parent, help alleviate the issue, see what the problem is. And me working firsthand, I do understand the busyness, me working firsthand in the building, I do understand the busyness of administration. I do understand I actually see, and I've observed them actually being in buildings. So when parents are upset saying it's taking too long, or why haven't they called back, or the principal's never in the building and blah, 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 they have a responsibility too, and they are out a lot, and they're always, in meetings and stuff like that. But it doesn't negate the fact that an issue could have occurred with their child and that they want it addressed. And at some point, we have a bunch of administrators. We have a bunch of assistant administrators. So there's dean of students. There's so many departments broke down where the adults in the building, someone can contact a parent. And so this is what drove my passion to this project that I'm doing, which is called the Direct Reporting Portal. I got promoted in January. And so when January came about, there was this incident that had been brewing, I had no knowledge of. And so with different levels of your job, you're privy to different information or more information. As an investigator, before I got promoted up until sergeant, I only knew, I was only privy to maybe special assignments. They'll give me, oh, you can go here, I need you to do this or do that. But as a supervisor, manager, I'm kind of in the realm of the problems of the parent complaints, and I'm hearing them firsthand versus getting a call from dispatch saying this is what's going on. I'm actually receiving those phone calls. And so imagine sending your child to school in the morning. The schools open 7 in the morning for breakfast and all of that. You sending your child to school in the morning, you are on your way to work in the morning. Of course, school gets out before you do. You get home 6 or 7 o'clock. You assume that your child is going to be safe. Everybody wants to know when they send a child out to school in the morning that they get to school and everything is fine. You get a phone call from your child. He's crying his butt off. It's after school and he's screaming that he just got jumped and assaulted by someone way older than him. And what do you do as a parent? He had been getting bullied for a while. The parent had been trying to call the school. And of course, firsthand, like I mentioned before, some of the principals, they are in meetings and stuff like that, but you have a lot of administration, and I'm sorry to say I've been there, that ignores the complaints of some parents because of maybe the disposition of the parent, or maybe our parents don't know how to communicate professionally or in a manner that doesn't come off intimidating or something like that. So I've seen firsthand where, the phone calls, oh, I'll call them later, all this and that. And those laters turn into months later or weeks later, and you have the customer, our number one customer in the district are our students, and the parents, want answers, and they want to assure that their child is being safe at school. So, this mom called, she kept calling to get some information, to see what's going on, to come to get a report done. She did, however, respond to the school to pick her son up from the incident. She saw him bloody. She saw his face stomped in, his teeth kicked out. Can you imagine being a mom rushing up to the school after you get a frantic phone call of your child crying? You're already going crazy trying to get up there to protect your child. And you get up to the school and you see all of this. And you're like, okay, well, where's security? Where's administration? Of course, who did this to my child? And so this is not every instance. And sometimes we have these situations. And so, the security officer was out that day. The district has been lacking a lot of officers because short staff, and a lot of people have been quitting and all of that stuff. So we are short staffed a lot. So the officer wasn't there in the building. This was a day that the administrator was not there at all. So as a mother coming to observe your child in this way, where's the accountability? Where is the principal? Where is this? Where is that? So needless to say, she called, she couldn't get it. They said, we'll give you a phone number. You can call the district, you can do this. She called and called and called, and she never got anybody. So the student eventually was suspended, and he was brought back to the school because there was nothing done. There was no follow-up. There was no charges filed because the parent couldn't get in touch with anybody. And so at the end of the day, the parent when the child came back, this parent is being, the student is being bullied all over again by this boy who jumped him, stomped his teeth out, knows that there was no real consequences, and he just continues to bully the kid. And so the mom is like, okay, well, who can I call? There was nothing done from the first incident. This is months later, which is totally unacceptable on the district's behalf. And so what are we going to do with this student who's back in school? He beat my child up. I wanted to file charges. I'm waiting to hear from mobile. I went to CPD. CPD sent me back to the district. I'm at the district. Can somebody help me? And so from that, she was given a number. She sent pictures of her child's injury to this number, and there was no response to this number. So right when I got promoted, this was what fell into my lap. It must have been meant for me to have this. This is my ministry, Mark, right? So this is what I'm so passionate about, because I don't understand, and I will never understand how you can have a child in the building or at school and no accountability can be held on what happened or any injuries or anything like that. So once I got talking to the mom, I got to end with her. She told me all this stuff, and next thing you know, I get on it, and I will refuse to let this fall out of my hands and not have accountability or some actions behind it. And so unfortunately, I looked into the situation. The person she was texting never responded. They never filed a report, and she could not file charges on this young man who did this to her child. And so he was allowed to be back in the school, bullying her son and still bothering her son. And as a parent, you want to let your child wants to know that you can protect them. And so at some points, that's an issue. And so what my project entails is a device where you can have an app on your phone. As a parent, you can send a request in and say something, and it's going to be disseminated to certain people. And so from there, we have 39,000 students and over 5,000 staff members. We have 68 K-8 sites with the district and over 32 high school sites. And so throughout the days of every day going to school, there's always an incident. And it's unfortunate to say, but there's always a bullying incident. There's always a fighting incident. There's always an assault somewhere. There have been kidnappings on the way home from school. School kids are being followed from school. And I've had several of those incident reports as an investigator, getting a call from dispatch saying there's a couple students on their way to school. They were followed by a guy in a truck and this and that. And so it's like, on your way to school, on your way from school, what safety mechanisms do our kids have? Parents don't have the time to take the kids back and forth to school all the time, or, they rely on RTA, they rely on school transportation and stuff like that. And so with some of these incidents that went unreported, we have kids that are kind of reserved to themselves. They don't have certain friends. They are not the in crowd, or, they're threatened if you tell, we're going to say this or we're going to do this. So it continues the bullying. And so sometimes when they get home and they let it out, that's when the parent wants answers. And so the parent should be able to have their complaints addressed at all times, I believe. And so we have duty chiefs on 24 hours with the district, not saying all complaints are going to be answered, on the spot. But if it's something serious, a kidnapping, a rape, a sexual imposition, or something like that, we want those incidents addressed properly. And through innovation and technology comes a creativity via an app on your phone from a company called Moxo that I did a research on. And of course, with the district, our mission is to deliver quality service to our customers, and our customers are our students. And without our students, we basically don't have a district. So the purpose of the app is to improve the quality of service. And a bit of our departmental breakdown, we have our building security, we have mobile patrol officers, which are our police officers, where, if we do have certain situations like that, if they go to CPD will say, we have our own mobile patrol officers, they'll have to do the report. And unfortunately, we are short officers too. And some of those reports go unreported or unaddressed. And so this is what we're trying to alleviate with the app. And so we have our investigative unit, which is the unit that I'm in. I was promoted from an investigator to sergeant now. We have our gang unit and unit who addresses gang issues, all of that stuff. We have our dispatch unit where, if you have an incident, you call into dispatch, and from dispatch, they'll be able to, disseminate the call to whoever or call someone if they don't have the answers for the individual on the phone. And with the app is going to be linked to our dispatch department. So when that parent or a concerned individual in the community sends a complaint or a concern in the app, it goes directly to our dispatch unit, and it also goes to our managers who have the app in their phone, and it comes through just like a text message. So there's no waiting on a response. So we have we also have CCTV video, emergency operations management team. We have our community service, safety town, and our bullying department. And with that, we have areas of our areas of concern with the district are, number one, angry parents. We have to address all issues, and unfortunately, our parents are frustrated with the length of time it takes to address an issue or the length of time it takes for a principal to be called back. All they want is a callback. And so they are upset that their concern has not been addressed. And so if the parent or our community will know that they can have the option to communicate with an app on your phone, then this should alleviate some of those concerns from the building. We have our technology issues, which adds to our angry parents because they're told to go on the district website, find the area where you report the incident. It's 5 or 6 steps before you actually get to the form. And sometimes, when you send a form, acknowledgement notification, you need an acknowledgement notification saying, okay, I received your complaint, blah, blah, blah. In some cases, there's no confirmation that the form was accepted or anything like that. And the response, who does the request go to? There's been discrepancies on our smart sheet form. That's the actual, the current reporting mechanism is the smart sheet form. And so there's no exact person or direct contact who the smart sheet is authored by or who responds to the smart sheet. I did a test case in November, the beginning of November, and actually the end of October, just to submit a complaint on smart sheet form. And it is today that I've not received a response back. So if I was an angry parent who went on the district's website to make a complaint, which is what I'm told to do as a parent, make a complaint on the district's website. Okay, I'm going to make a complaint on the district website. Where's the response? Who's going to handle my complaint? And so I can see the frustration of an angry parent submitting something on the district website and hadn't got a response back. And it's been almost a month that I've haven't gotten a response back. And I let the smart sheet form know this was a test. I want to know who can respond and what time you respond. And so I've yet to receive a response back from the smart sheet form or whomever authors the smart sheet form. And so with our previously reported incidents, I did a survey. I did a comparison on our our current reporting system, which is our ARMS system, where it's usually called in through dispatch. And so during the 2021-22 school year, we had a total of 2,161 reports made on incidents ranging from abduction, arson, assault, staff, student, bus accidents, fights, robberies, and all of that. And the list goes on. Currently, during this school year, we've had 784 reports already made, and we have 6 months left before the end of the school year. With those numbers, it is uncertain, and there is no way to track if any of those complaints came from the smart sheet form. And so the goal is to improve the current incident reporting process by eliminating the smart sheet form, which is to eliminate online submissions. Because if you can't find the form, it takes you, if you don't have a computer, you can't even access it because you need to go to the computer. You need to be technology savvy enough to know how to navigate the district website, to go under the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to the S, safety and security, to find the form, go all the way down the list to find the form that says incident reports, and then type your whole incident in there. And then you have to wait to it to be submitted. Well, no, you submit it, but then you have to wait to it to be addressed. And sometimes you may not even get that incident addressed. So of course, eliminate unaddressed complaints. Our goal is to increase customer satisfaction by addressing those complaints, creating a sense of safety and security, and delivering instant acknowledgement to any complaint sent in on the app. And so anybody will be able, not anybody, but from the app, I'll be able to disseminate certain departments, certain situations to those areas to where they have to respond. And so I have a little video, just a couple minute video. I'm gonna skip to the around 30-second video. This goes kind of in hand with the reason why the app should be implemented. I'm gonna skip to the 30-second mark.
Creepy encounter with a stranger during a walk home from school on Friday afternoon. It's like, I'm going to Wawa. Do you want to come with me? Are you going to Wawa? What are you getting? Sammy says the woman followed him for a couple of blocks on High Street. She asked him where his family was. The smart, quick-thinking fourth grader executed a getaway plan, ducking into a store, asking the clerk for help.
Now, can you imagine if that was your child walking home from school by himself, and there's strangers following them or walking with them, and you know, does your school age, how old is your school age child? Does your child walk to and from school? Does your child have a cell phone? Does your child know what to do if a stranger is following them? What would you do as a parent in this situation? Now, fortunately, the kid was smart enough to duck off into this store where the 17-year-old worker was, and he told her to pretend like she was his mom so the lady can walk away. So the quick thinking 17-year-old went to lock the door from the lady who stood at the door, actually opened the door and watching this young man as he goes to the counter to talk to her. And so, you know, in his head, can you imagine the fear of a child not knowing why this person is following me? Why are they talking to me? They look scary, which is the reason why he went into the store. And so later, in the beginning of the video, you saw him standing there with his dad, because the 17-year-old girl, she called the dad and let him know what was going on. And so the dad ended up coming, and of course the school was closed. And of course we have CPD. We'll never take away from CPD. They are our savior. We love CPD. But when there's an issue with students, the school district has a responsibility to answer and to address those complaints. And so that is some of the reasons why CPD refer back to the district, for one, so we can be aware. Now, this type of incident, of course, they probably will act on, but as a parent, the parent wants to probably put in more safety provisions from the school, or see what the district is going to do, because this just happened to their child. And so with the app, the company is called Moxo, who I'm going through. And so, you see how this did me? I don't have time for this, guys. Why is this happening? I was almost done. Okay, so with the app, you'll be able to configure your own hub, personalize your app with your company, and all of that. And so you can do your own customer portal. You can interact through your hub at their convenience. You can provide just-in-time assistance to all clients anywhere. And there is an end-to-end customer management system where Moxo records all interactions, just in case there's a hiccup with the app. We all have technology issues. There's hiccup with the apps where, you know, they record everything. So, you know, if it crashes, we still have access to it. So that is the good thing about the app. and what it brings to the table. And what will you get in direct communication through this app. Knowing all concerned parents, students, the community, and staff will be able to report incidents from an app on their phone. The portal/app is designed to have incidents reported in a timely manner and have them addressed sooner than later. And of course, I did a SWOT analysis to outline my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And of course, our strengths would be, this is efficient. It's a faster response time. It's a paperless process. We are intending on increasing customer satisfaction. It's an easy navigation. Pick up your phone, go to the app, tap it, type in your complaint, send it. Changing the district's incident reporting process would be a great strength. And my ultimate goal is to just improve that process. I don't want to replace it. I just want to improve it. So we'll eliminate the amount of unaddressed complaints. And of course, our weaknesses is vulnerability, exposing the amount of incidents. Of course, the district doesn't like, the amount of incidents exposed due to maybe people pulling their kids out thinking the district isn't safe, but we have mechanisms in place to keep everybody safe. And this is something that we're doing in place of that. And buy-in of the project from the district. Is it good enough? Is it selling? Do you think this will work? And our opportunity for other school districts to have an automated incident reporting tool and adaptation of the project to other agencies looking to go paperless and to connect all stakeholders. Financial costs are the threats, of course. We have discussed budgeting. That's in the process. Who maintains the app? It's always the question. Moxo will maintain the app, so I have those answers. Technology concerns, if there is, Moxo is always recording in the background, so that should alleviate our technology concerns. Innovation with the current system. Hopefully this wouldn't be a problem to innovate this with the current reporting system. And the legalities. I spoke with our legal consult, and so we're in the midst of having an actual consultation to go over all of the legal ins and out. And of course, the projected outcome and deliverables is to address parents and students' concerns the same day reported or within a reasonable time frame. Having the parents feel safe knowing should their child be in any incident of school that the report or the incident will be addressed. And assurance, knowing the app is linked directly to our dispatch unit. Just in case, phone is dead, it goes to dispatch. If the manager is not there, dispatch can answer the complaint. And of course, we broke this down into phases. And our phase one, which is what started, which is what I did to start the process, is researching the existing incident reporting tool, tested the existing reporting tool. I consulted with the department data analyst. I consulted with the office manager, and I did an unofficial survey of parents and their pain points in reporting incidents and follow-ups just to see if they think the app would be a good idea, and they agreed. Our phase two is I researched Moxo to find a company that actually holds an app or can provide the what I want in my hand. And so I consulted with GCRTA PD because months ago, when we spoke about our projects in class, Chief Jones mentioned that this was something that her department may look to implement because, like she mentioned in her project, that there are several incidents that happen on the RTA, and then our babies ride the bus to and from school. And some of those incidents, majority of those incidents are happening with our students in the school. And of course, I consulted with the Chief of Safety and Security to get his okay, which I did. In phase three, we have the actual Moxo presentation that I scheduled with the chief. Everybody's schedule's been so busy, so I'm actually in the process of still doing that. Our legal consultation, our district IT consultation, and our contract, those are all going to be done once I have a meeting set up. I have a meeting plan to meet with everyone, even the guy Max from Moxo. He's going to do an actual presentation to our chief, the legal consult, and everybody else so he can read the reason why their app is great. And so after that, the contract will be signed, the app can be designed, and implementation can actually begin. And so process improvement, which is the goal, can actually happen. And so that is what I hope for. Thank you. This was very hard.
Great job, Yeshiva. The one thing that we're hearing as a theme is that we don't have enough people, the great resignations going on. And so we're going to have to incorporate, technology into our work as a way to assist us as we do our work. So I think this is one of my favorite topics because you're found a way to kind of resolve an issue, but at the same point in time, incorporate technology to help communications and coordination of these as well. So I'm going to get right to Alexandra to see if there's any comments or concerns to stay on track.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob. Hey, Shiva, fantastic presentation. We are getting some comments that say this as well. So overall, really positive feedback. We do have a question. Has MOXO been used in other cities? If so, has it been working in other areas? And this question is coming from Kristen Hall.
Yes, Christian. Actually, MOXO, they have a large website. If you just actually go on there, they are used by a lot of banks, a lot of retail businesses. They have different abilities and capabilities on the app that you can use. And so they are being used. I do not believe by a school district yet. We will be the biggest entity that they will employ with the app. And so this is something that he's excited. Max, the actual guy who I'm working with. So he's excited to get this off because this will be a beginning for their company to work with someone who has as many people, to actually navigate the app. So yeah, he's excited.
So no more questions, but 2 quick comments in the last couple seconds that we have together. So your colleague, Mark, says there is a real need for this reporting. And then Christine says, nice job. And thank you so much for the examples.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, we rounded third and we're heading home now. We have our last project of today. And this project is going to be executed by Kristen Hall, who is the executive director over at Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District. I kept practicing that name and I kept on screwing it up. So I apologize, Kristen. But Kristen, I want to say thank you for you to joining our cohort and for the partnership, with the soil district. We've had several folks from your team joining us, and we're really, are thrilled to have you personally, but then also the group just be part of the OCPM family. So Kristen is going to talk to us today about something called circular organic waste management. And I'm kind of curious to see what this is all about, but I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation and see how it's going to impact our region. So take it away, Kristen.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Just really quick, want to make sure you can hear me okay. Sounds coming through good. So like all of my predecessors, I also want to just thank Rob and Alexandra for all of your support. You mentioned the shameless plug for PMA, Rob, and I don't think it needs to be shameless. I feel PMA sells itself, and I have already passed it on to a few folks. We are budgeting to make sure we can send another person next, maybe next cohort if we can make it work timing wise. Just really valuable stuff. I also want to just thank the previous presenters. You shared some amazing stories that are incredibly impactful. I am humbled by the work that you do and then continue to go back and do every day after the things that you've seen. Me just like planting trees and hoping that we manage our stormwater makes me, again, just much more respectful of the folks who really put yourselves out there and are putting your whole selves out there to do that. So yes, just some really great presentations. I'm really proud to be sharing with you folks. So I'm going to share my screen and I am going to do my very best to present this via Canva. And if not, we're going to do it in, this is new. Oh, here we go. Thank you. for your patience, everyone, and then just let me know when you can see it.
You can see it.
All right, great.
Rock and roll. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so as Rob mentioned, my name is Kristen Hall. I am the director or the executive director of the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District. And I'm going to talk to you about circular organic waste management in Cuyahoga County. So just really quick, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, a couple quick things to help you understand maybe why this is such an important project for me. First and foremost, I hate waste. One of the things that got me into this field in the first place is recycling. I kind of consider that your gateway environmentalism. It's the easiest thing to do. But once you've sort of mastered that, then you start to look at what are those other things that you can reduce in your life. How do I reduce things from coming in so I don't have to worry about them going out? Prior to this role, I was the director of sustainability for the city of Cleveland. And I was also the director of sustainability when we lost our recycling program. So that was especially hard for me. I'm glad to see that that program is back. And then as I now have shifted into this new role, I'm really excited to explore how we can have a role at the district in supporting organic waste management. So I want to talk about what is organic waste. Ooh, my slides have gotten a little thrown off here, but you know, trying to understand what organic waste is, forgive me, some of my pictures did not populate here. You know, it's the things that you see every day. It's your wood waste, your grass clippings, your leaves that you're raking up, debris from construction sites. It's even the number 2 that we're flushing down the toilet. There's a definition here of any material that's biodegradable, comes from a plant or an animal, but for our purposes, we're really focusing on some of those materials that are generated from homes and businesses in Cuyahoga County. Here we go. It's slowly loading. Forgive me, my computer is having a slow day today. So slowly our slides will start popping up here. It also includes food waste. So really all of us are touching organic waste every single day, even in just the things that we're eating. So as we think about that, I'm going to channel my inner Mark and Sergeant Martin to tell you a quick story. So as I've been at the district for just a little bit over a year, and as I was getting settled in, I'm starting to learn more about soil and water conservation districts in Ohio. So we at Cuyahoga, we have a very urban focus, but as you get away from the more center of the city, there is a much heavier focus on agriculture. So as I'm learning about what the district does and how we interact with the other districts, starting to understand, you know, what is our role in urban agriculture. And as I was talking with Jacob from our staff, who is kind of heading up most of our urban ag work, he threw out a quick stat to me, and he said that we have 60 harvests left until we run out of good soil that is going to allow us to grow the food that we need to feed the billions of people that we have on this planet. And I don't know about you all, but when I hear something like that, I get the feeling like birds probably get before a volcano when they start to fly away, that, uh-oh, we need to do something about this. We need to get out of here. Unfortunately, we can't get out of here. We only have the one planet. We have not figured out where else to go. So, you know, this is really a yikes moment for us. I don't want to find myself waking up 20 years from now and all of a sudden food costs triple what it's costing today because we didn't do something about it today. And we're not able to actually feed people. And, you know, as was highlighted in our previous presentations, if people can't get access to food, they're going to do stuff to get it, and things can get ugly. So we want to try to avoid some of that. And, you know, really trying to be stewards of our natural resources. You know, if we're putting all of this stuff into landfills, we are going to lose it, and it's not going to be easy to recapture some of that. So I want to make sure that I do highlight some of our current leaders in local organic waste management. We have Rust Belt Riders. Many of you may have heard of them. They started off on bikes, just collecting compost from some residents and businesses, and they have really expanded their operations. They now have a subscription service where you can sign up and get one of these 5-gallon buckets to keep at their home. They're doing a ton with our businesses and really kind of leading the charge in local composting in the Cleveland and Cuyahoga area. Additionally, we have Rid All Green Partnership that is doing some similar work, maybe not at the same scale that Rust Belt Riders is, but they're doing a fantastic job of connecting the organic waste that we are collecting with growing food and teaching skills to some of our community members to be able to do some of this and be self-sufficient themselves. So that is great stuff. We really love that they're doing it, but both of these organizations are operating on kind of a smaller scale. We need to have something where we can collect all of the organic waste from our communities in order to make sure that we aren't losing that material into our landfills. So quickly, I just want to share a few numbers. This comes from the County Solid Waste District's annual report. You can see throughout Cuyahoga County, we have 502,000 tons that are landfilled and only 127,000 tons that are actually recycled of organic material. And you can drill in across our different communities. Some are doing much better than others, and for various reasons that we will get into as part of this process. So again, getting into some of this, about 30%, there's estimations that about 30% of what is in landfills right now actually represents organic material. So that means that's another 150,000 tons that could be captured and reused somehow. That's more than double what we're currently capturing. So there's lots of opportunity here to sort of rethink our waste and how we're valuing these materials. So additionally, it may feel like we are starting to climb a real big mountain. It's a lot to tackle across the whole community, especially when we don't really have the large scale infrastructure and operations that we really need. So when I think about this project, I'm really inspired by some of my previous work with the city of Cleveland through the Sustainable Cleveland Initiative. And what happened with Sustainable Cleveland, if you are familiar with it, or even if you're not, Mayor Jackson brought the community together. When I say the community, we're talking 500-600 plus folks representing lots of different sectors, age groups, neighborhoods in the community, to really try to design and develop what a sustainable Cleveland would look like. And what we did is utilize what's called appreciative inquiry. And appreciative inquiry is a facilitation style that really takes a asset and strengths-based approach, really looking at the positive rather than the negative. And if you step back and think about it, if we could sit here and list the city of Cleveland's problems, our organic waste problems, we could list problems all day, but that's not going to get us very far in terms of trying to find solutions. What if we instead look at what is going well? What do we love about our community? And then how do we build off of that to see more success in other areas? So I'm really inspired by what had happened with Sustainable Cleveland, because they were able to bring the community together, have some really deep and meaningful conversations, and brainstorm some ideas about how we make Cleveland a green city on a blue lake. And I'm hoping to take some of those same practices and principles through this project to help create kind of this shared vision for what organic waste could look like in the future. So as I get into my project overview, I've kind of talked about the challenge here. Our organic wastes are not seen as a valued material. They're waste. We want to get rid of them. And I think, kind of tying back to what I had mentioned in the beginning, if we don't start to recognize the role that those organic materials play in our food systems. Here in Northeast Ohio, if you don't have good soil, you aren't sucking up the water when we have those heavy rainstorm events. And, we're only going to continue to see more wet weather, extreme wet weather, and having some nice spongy soil that would help soak that up is really going to help make us a much more resilient region in the future. My vision as I kind of embark on this, and again, some of it ties into just my personal passions. When I retire, I want to see everyone that is living and working in Cuyahoga County having access to, and this is, at your curb, having a bin in your office. And then also, I don't want them to feel that they have to do this, but they're really excited to voluntarily participate in this because we've done a great job of educating them why these resources are so important. So overall, I want to see everyone having access to systems that make organic waste diversion as easy as possible. And then also we have uses for those materials that help provide the most benefit in our communities once we're putting them on the ground. So for me, this is something that, like I said, this is a mountain. This is a big thing that's going to have to be tackled. It's not going to be done in a year. It's not going to be done in 5 years. Like I said, when I retire, I hope to see this project really be much more substantial, but that's a long ways away. So how do you get started? So for me, I have found that, like with Sustainable Cleveland, if everyone's sort of working in their own silos, they have their own priorities, the only things that they're working on, and there's no collaboration among partners to see what are folks working on, making sure efforts aren't duplicated, we're not competing for grant funding, or instead we're collaborating on grant funding. So my project overall is going to be hosting a charrette, which is either half or full day kind of brainstorming session among relevant stakeholders and partners who touch organic waste, so that we can really create a shared vision of how to best manage our waste in this region and make it be a valuable commodity rather than a material we have to manage. And I think, again, having done a little bit of appreciative inquiry training myself, one of the things that stuck with me is, how powerful is it to have everyone that's in a system working towards the same goal? So my charrette is helping to get all of us to have that same vision of what this could look like so that our individual work on a day-to-day basis helps contribute to that main goal. And we're all kind of swimming in the same direction. I've started to engage with a number of key stakeholders, the Cuyahoga Solid Waste District being the main one. They are the leaders in waste diversion here in Cuyahoga County. And I think especially with our two roles between being, government agencies, having a footprint of the whole county, interacting directly with municipalities, we're going to be, I think, the two main leaders that can help convene a lot of these other partners. You can see again, Rustfeld and Riddall, but we have lots of others who either generate, manage, or have use for organic waste or, the products that come out of them. I've been over the last few months really trying to plant a lot of seeds with these folks so that when it is time to invite them to the charrette, that I've generated some excitement. And they can help hopefully see that vision too and see how that could come together. Some of my projected outcomes for this project is, again, creating that shared vision. I think that is going to be the most critical to ensure that we all kind of know who the players are and know who's doing what to achieve that vision. One of the other pieces that will come out of this charrette is really starting to map the inputs of where these source materials are coming from. So we have lots of different places that we can, that materials will be generated, from tree waste to your yard waste on the curb, to food waste from residents and businesses, to our construction wastes and our wastewater wastes, all kinds of different organic waste materials that we can focus on. But we need to know where they're coming from, how much is actually generated, and then even some of the operations and infrastructure that is collecting that, because it's great to say, yeah, we should be tackling all of this. But as I've had to tell someone, like, how do you get that material from somebody's home to the place that it needs to be processed and then back in as effective a way as possible? And that isn't something that this project is going to solve that answer, but we're going to get all of the folks who are working on that together to help us figure out what that solution could be. And additionally, I'm hoping that through some of these conversations, we're going to have a little bit of low-hanging fruit that will help us to identify where could we, do a few pilot projects, a few demonstration projects to get something off the ground, kind of show a proof of concept, or work through some of the mistakes and lessons learned, so that we can really start to scale up. Again, for this to be community-wide, you need to have a large distributed infrastructure. You need to have the political will to make it happen. You may even need some policy and legislation in place to help support some of it. So for me, it's figuring out what are some of the first kind of baby steps that we can then really start to ramp up and grow as this work gets more solidified. So overall project status. Right now, I have obviously gotten our PMA idea, and I've been discussing this with some of our key partners. I am definitely due for a regroup with the solid waste district, and it's tough because some of this is an add-on to our existing work. There's definitely overlap with both of our missions, but it is not currently funded. So trying to make some time and space for this is often a challenge, as I'm sure we all know. So over the next couple of months, planning to reconnect with partners and establish the timeline and format for the charrette. Right now, I'm aiming for spring or summer of 2023. Recognizing that there is some groundwork that needs to happen there. Also have started a little bit of the data collection and analysis, and that's where our solid waste district is going to be a really key player in some of that. They work very closely with our municipalities and are regulated through EPA to do annual reports on the amount and types of waste that are being generated and then also diverted or landfilled here in the county. So that's going to be a really solid basis for us. And then I think it will help us to identify where else we have some data gaps that could help be filled. For example, working with our tree companies to understand how many trees, how much waste are they pulling down, what are they doing with it? Maybe they're using it for their own operations, but maybe they would benefit from having some of this distributed infrastructure to take their material as they're working. So then, of course, we're going to identify those stakeholders. I have a list going, but I recognize that I don't know all of the players. So as I'm having conversations, I'm trying to continue adding to my list and make sure that we do have all of the right voices at the table, so that we aren't missing anything as we do embark on some of this work. So I may be circling back, and Rob and Alexandra, if there's opportunity to invite any of our PMA folks to participate in the charrette, I would be happy to loop you all into that as well. And with that, I want to just thank you all. I think selfishly, I really am hoping that this inspires you all. I know organic waste isn't maybe a topic that is always the front of mind for you, but it's something that we all touch and we all interact with. And ultimately, we all are going to really need to make sure we're stewards of if we want to have food to eat. So I will welcome any questions, and I thank you all for your time and the space to present.
Thank you, Kristen. I love this project. I know they're still in a process of fleshing it out and developing the next steps, but I would like to definitely host or sponsor, the charrette, or maybe convene some groups. Yeah, definitely. So let's figure that out.
Excellent. I need a space. I've started brainstorming some, but definitely I think what I'm worried about is my invite list keeps growing. So, which isn't a bad problem to have, but then you run out of places that you can actually fit all those folks.
Yeah, let's do that. We can easily do that in the college, in the atrium, and that will fit 150 people. And if we need to, we can see if we can go down the road a little bit to our student center ballroom. But I think we can definitely put something together. And I also like to use it as a PMA reunion. Reason why I'm saying that is, next project that we're going to talk about tomorrow is going to be hosted and facilitated by CMSD folks, both Mallory and Robinette, and it's about food and it's about nutrition and things like that. So I'm thinking that maybe, CMSD might be a natural partner in this to kind of launch some type of pilot program or something like that. But we have all kinds of communities across the county that we can tap into. So let's continue this conversation. So That's my feedback. I don't have any other questions, but I do want to pass the baton over to Alexandra for feedback or questions from the group.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob, and great job, Kristen. Fantastic project, and I can't wait to hear a little more in the coming months and years to see how things go. All right, so we do have, it looks like 2 comments so far. So I just want to remind all of you out there to please send in your questions and comments. I know Kristen would love to answer any questions that you have. So please send those in. But we do have 2 comments. So our first is from Christine. Christine says, thank you, Kristen, great information on such an important topic. I agree. And then Kat also says, excellent job. I would love to get involved.
Excellent. And I'll encourage all of you who are watching to just think about your organic waste. So maybe when you're done with lunch today, are you throwing any food away? And that's okay. Listen, this is not meant to be judgmental. It is just meant to be to open your eyes and make you more aware. Because I think one of the big components that I have of the charrette is kind of marketing and perception changes. You know, for decades, we've viewed these materials as waste, stuff that you have to throw away. So I think just starting to have a paradigm shift of what waste actually means and how to value these things and why we have to value them is really, I think, gonna be one of the bigger lifts. There can be money to be made, and the operations will help, you know, make people's lives a little bit easier. But if you aren't sort of getting on board with why we're doing it, that's our role at Soil and Water, is to make sure that we do that. So hopefully we will tackle all of that. So thank you, and again, just great job to the other presenters. It was a little tough going after Sergeant Martin and Mark, but they were both excellent. So thank you.
Everyone was great today. I feel like everyone definitely brought it. I loved the diversity of topics too. So it was really great to hear about what you all have been working on and your future plans. I'm going to see if we have any other questions or comments. Going once, going twice. All right, Rob, back to you. Wait, one more. Just a comment from Sergeant Martin. She says, again, you did equally amazing. Thanks for the mention. And I love this cohort too, because everyone supports one another too. Everyone complements one another. I think also this has been a particularly great group with having that space for feedback. And so we kind of mentioned that earlier. That's one of the things that we've been really trying to incorporate, is having that space for feedback and providing peer evaluation. And so it's been really great to see the cohort learn from one another and work with one another throughout the process. All right, thanks. Rob, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alexandra. All right, Kristen, fantastic work. I'm serious about that invitation. I definitely want to host it at CSU. This makes perfect sense to continue this conversation, and let's figure this out. And you're part of the family. Like, this is Hotel California. Like, once you get in, you can never leave. Kristen is also, as far as a plug, Kristen is also one of our mentors this year for our mentoring program. And so she's helping out with our students. I appreciate that assistance as well. So we'll definitely keep this going. That will conclude our main programming for today. I did look at the participant list here, and I saw Brent Eisenbach, who is also from Soil and Water. So Brent, a quick shout out to you. Brent is one of our alumni and actually a co-worker of Kristen, and went through the program last year, finished up with Leadership Academy and PMA before that. So well, I'm really glad to see some of our alumni on board. And I also, just while looking at the group here, there's some folks that are in our current PMA number 10 cohort. So a quick shout out to those people as well. So those folks get a chance to get a little preview of what the projects look like, and hopefully take that feedback to not only your shop, but also take it back to the cohort as well, as far as how you can continue to raise the bar as we move forward. So anyway, that'll conclude our presentation for today.